Great. Well, welcome everyone to our second edition of this meeting.
So I think it would be great to start off just if we could have all the alums who are here just to introduce themselves and just to say a little bit about how you're involved in the arts, what your path through the arts has been.
I'm Linda Thompson. I live in New York City. I'm the CEO and founder of a beauty brand called Biography. As a startup brand and also one that we're very high design oriented, but the conversation last week was a lot about when you're starting out, how do you keep your vision and your creative expression amid trying to find your path in a commercial sense or in a sort of exposition sense. And I think it's exactly what I face all the time. Tom knows this. We work together. Um, I mean, always just being true to what is your brand, what are your values, what are you trying to express. I think somebody in the call last week talked a lot about just create more. And in the process of creating a lot, you will start to solidify your your look and your mode of expression and what you're trying to say.
Hi, I'm Maggie Adler. I'm coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas. That's not a place I thought I was going to end up, but here you go. I majored in art history at Williams undergrad and had a kind of circuitous path. Worked for some internet companies and worked at the college museum. I got a job as the director of development for an art museum and very quickly realized that I wanted to be in the curatorial, directorial realm rather than in just simply in the fundraising. I got my master's from Williams, started over with an internship at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and from there moved to Texas, where I was the curator of painting, sculpture, and works on paper at the Amon Carter Museum of American Art for 11 years. Quit about a year and a half ago to go independent as I was becoming increasingly disillusioned with institutional recalcitrance and also became far more contemporary than the job I was hired for. And so I'm now basically converted to working with living artists at museums around the world. And I'm also writing a book that has nothing to do with the art world.
I am an artist. I often think of myself as a social engagement artist, not because the work I make in my studio looks like social engagement, but because of what I do with the work in the studio. Sometimes I call it curatorial, sometimes I call it cultural organizing, but basically, I make paintings and drawings. Those paintings and drawings are abstract, but they're very much about something. And then I need to animate what that aboutness is through a social engagement project. I've been pursuing that kind of work for a good 20 years. I've founded and run a nonprofit. I've founded a couple of other things that may as well have been nonprofits. But at the core, it's always being in the studio, making my paintings and drawings, and figuring out how to connect with others around what these works are about.
My name's Diego. I'm a senior here at Williams, and I have a question for Maggie, actually. And I'm kind of curious about the process of like finding new artists and like maybe advice that you'd have for young artists that are kind of like looking to be represented or like looking for space to show their work. If you have any advice with regards to that.
Thank you. Yeah. Do those shows like apply to those things that maybe you think are like, ooh, this seems like it's in a coffee shop or it's in a bank building or it's run by a bunch of volunteers and it doesn't seem worth my doing. Like that has actually created long-lasting relationships in a way that I hadn't anticipated.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the anti-answer in a way. Um, in my case, the very best thing for me was I utterly failed at having anyone interested in my work for several years after graduate school. And the reason that was so important was because it it affirmed for me why I was doing the art. I don't know, obviously, Diego, your work or what's led you to that question. Um, but I think it's important to recognize that the uh, conventional path is not the only path.
Hi, I'm Luca. I'm a first year at Williams. From either Maggie or Linda, do you guys have any advice on the curator side of creating like a theme or an aesthetic for your exhibition?
My aspiration is to have the thing on the shelf. The way you guys talk about, I want to have my paintings on the walls. And it really does start with kind of getting clear on what do I want it to look like? Do I have something to express? Um, but it has to look uniquely yours.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Zan. I was class of 24 at Williams. I was a studio art major. I'd definitely be interested in your takes on how to keep your own kind of voice and vision stable and whole, even while having to do some amount of like commercialization of your own work.
I never compromised what I did in my studio. What I compromised was how I spent my time. It's going to take time to even really figure out what kind of artist you are. And you can't have the noise of outside demands or expectation while you're doing that work, you know? That's all I have to say.
I think like connected to what Peter said, like peripheral, like related, but not diminishing your brand kind of things like this can work. My best friend, who's a very, very serious sculptor, but in his spare time, he makes flower pots that he sells on Etsy. And it's not diminishing his work, but it's helping him pay the bills in a way that's, it's still creative, but it's not soul crushing.
Shall we wrap up, Nick?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, all of you. It was great to hear your perspective.
Good
So
night.
much. Yeah.
Thank you.